Video made at Rollideo.com. Creating a video is now extremely easy with Rollideo. On September 8, 2022, my life changed forever. This is because it was also the day I found out that my partner of 2 years, Yella, at the age of 37, had stage 4 brain cancer. "I'm really sorry," said the neurologist, "but your scan suggests a malignant stage 4 brain cancer called medulloblastoma." As soon as I heard these words delivered to my fiancé, I knew the future we had planned out was over. It had disappeared in a matter of seconds. 2 years earlier, our life together had seemed so promising. I knew he was the one as soon as I met him. I had broken up with my ex-boyfriend a few months previously and was ready to meet someone new. So I signed up to the dating app Bumble, and that was how I found Yella. A Dutch software engineer working for Google in London, he was kind, quirky and funny. I was a school physics teacher, so we were both quite nerdy, science types, and I loved how active he was, always going running or climbing in his spare time. It wasn't until the day after Yella's 37th birthday that symptoms appeared. He had woken up feeling dizzy and nauseous. At first we assumed it was just a hangover following our celebrations. But the symptoms never went away, instead they grew worse. Within about a month he was vomiting all the time. We had planned a few trips abroad but had to cancel because Yella felt too unwell. Initially, doctors thought it was vertigo and told him he would get better, he just had to wait. But he continued to feel so sick he couldn't work. An MRI scan was carried out. Later that day, the doctor called him and told him they had found a mass on his brain, a tumor. Just a few weeks after we received the really devastating news that more detailed scans had shown Yella's tumor wasn't benign, it was a rare type of cancer of the central nervous system called medulloblastoma, more often seen in children than in adults. Yella was told the chance of him getting it had been 1 in 4 million. His chance of surviving 5 years was 65%. Both of us broke down in tears. But while I went to pieces and remained a mess for a long time afterwards, Yella was remarkably strong and calm. He never once said, "Why me?" or "It's not fair." His attitude was, "These are the cards I've been dealt and I just have to get on with it." But I knew then I could not stay with him. Watching helplessly as he got sicker and sicker over the preceding 3 months had been bad enough, but the uncertainty the diagnosis brought was just too much for me. I spent many sleepless nights researching, trying to find a miracle cure or a story with a good outcome, but all I could find was uncertainty and bleak statistics. Not only was there a significant chance of the cancer returning in the future, but there was the possibility of long-term and sometimes delayed side effects from the radiotherapy and chemotherapy treatment on his brain. I felt like the man I loved was slipping away from me. I had been so close to having everything I wanted and then, all of a sudden, it had been snatched away. I couldn't eat or sleep, I was suffering from panic attacks and taking all kinds of medication to help me function, to little effect. I told my mother and his, "I can't do this, I can't stay with him." They warned me not to tell him my decision at least until after his surgery. So I went to stay at my mother's and in late September Yella went into hospital for a 17-hour operation to remove the tumor. At 4 a.m. I finally received a call from the surgeon. Yella was out of the operating theater and was talking and moving his arms and legs. But he'd also been left with some quite severe brain damage, and had to get used to living with disabilities. He had double vision and paralysis on the right side of his face. He also had motor skills issues and had to learn how to write and walk again. Despite all this, he has coped amazingly well. Me, less so. We had had a brief conversation about our future before his surgery and I'd admitted I was struggling. "But there is a chance it can be cured," he protested. I ended our relationship about 2 weeks later. He was still recovering in hospital and I sat and faced him on a chair and told him I couldn't stay with him. "I can't see a way I can be happy with you anymore," I said, devastated. I knew I would be no good for him because I couldn't even function myself, due to the uncertainty of it all and the thought of him suffering more in the future. He needed strength and optimism and I could not provide that. We shed tears, then, for the future we wouldn't have. I'm still trying to come to terms with my decision. At the time, I felt like the worst person in the world, and I know if I heard this story about someone else I would think they were selfish.